Peace and blessings, everyone. I just came from the video store, and as I was pulling up to the in the parking lot, I pulled up behind this truck, and on this truck it had this stickers that said "God can," and really it's pretty funny because actually it was a handyman truck, so it said "God can handyman," so it rhymed. It's funny. Um, so when the video store got my video came out, and I started thinking about that phrase, God can. And I started thinking about it, and I started thinking about the limiting aspect of it. Because the word can, it designates a future tense, correct? That something can happen. When we say something can, it's going something that can happen in the future. And so thus, like I said, it's limiting God. And of course, this sort of goes back to my last video. Um, and that you're saying that God can do something, but he or she uh, won't, or they can, but they can't right now. They can, but they will in the future, or he will in the future. And then as I start thinking about, the past tense, you get the past, the present, and the future, and that, and the aspect of time. And time itself is something. If you put God within time parameters, you know, time limits. Once again, you're putting God in a limit. And can you really do that? God, the 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 true and pure nature of what we try to say God is. God is beyond time and matter, and space, right? Um, but of course, if God is an intellectual God who makes plans, then again makes plans. Well, you know, you can say, well, God can do something if He chose to at a later time. Um, but we have to make certain that our own vision of what God is and what should be uh, isn't limited. Maybe at the end of the day, all we have is our own visions, our own interpretations, our own beliefs of what God is. Because God may not be, uh, or it may not be in the sense of how we uh, perceive and believe. Samaj, can you shut the door for me? Shut the door for me. Thank you. Um, even I have to examine myself. I say that truth is God, uh, and I always say the truth is that truth may not be God. That God is, maybe truth isn't good enough. Maybe God is greater than truth. Uh, but all I have to go off of is, once again, my own perception of reality and how I perceive things and how I can understand things within my reality. Come on, what's up? All right.
They wind up being 25% off, so the 308 went down to 280 something. So for the 100.
All right. So like I said, I make sure I check myself. And this is what I try to ask everybody else. So always check yourself and hone. Come get her.
They have a
What's
different district, Poppy.
Andre, you're doing a video.
Oh,
Come on.
sorry.
Come on.
Are
How's
you
school?
taping? Are you
Yeah.
recording?
How was school?
Good.
All right. I said, so, I always ask that you do that. And if I'm going to ask you to do that myself. Um, understanding that I could be totally off base in my perception of God, that I could be blind, and for whatever reason, um, but I always attempt not to be blind. I always try to open my eyes and keep them open, and try to perceive the truth of what God is. You know. But anyway, so like I said, God can. And then so I was thinking, well, that's just so limiting. God can. You know what? How about? So initially I started thinking about God will, because God wills things to happen, right? Um, because it's through His will that things occur. But then I started thinking, well, even there, will is dealing with something that will take place in the future. That moving beyond, saying the will of God, which can happen right now, but using the will in that tense of it will happen. And so I was saying, well, what is the best way? What is the best word usage to apply to God? Because we should always look and search and seek, the best way to interpret God, to uh, create God, if you will. Being that in essence we have to create because, we don't have this entity standing before us verbally communicating with the way that we communicate with each other, saying this is what you should be doing. This is what you should be doing. We don't have this entity before us on video, on TV, as we communicate with each other, saying this is what we should be doing. We do have texts, we have books, but all the texts we have are up for dispute, um, are up for debate, and they are debated and disputed all the time. And it's understandably so. I mean, once again, if you're examining truth and you get to, because of the flaws, and because they're all lacking in some manner. We have, you go to a library, a bookstore, there's thousands of books out there, thousands of um, fictional books, and we have, our so-called our great writers and authors throughout history, and they create these stories, and we love these stories, and these are beautiful stories. And some of these books out here are greater than the so-called religious texts, which are supposed to be inspired by God. The stories that they relate. Look, even a book like the uh, the Urantia book, which is a wild book. With all that it says, the way that it speaks, the way that it talks and tries to describe things, to me, it does so in a more godlike manner than the Bible, because it tries to breaks down, just the history of everything, and you would think that's what something, if God was going to be giving us a message, um, and speaking to us, and having a history book, because the Bible is supposed to be some, a history book too, it talks about time periods, then you would want God to tell us everything, to break down everything, perfectly. I mean, perfectly, where there's no need for interpretation. Um, no need for trying to figure out anything. No need for trying to put together pieces. To try to go to one part of the book to prove a different part. I mean, it should just be perfect, uh, um, with everything, and it should tell things that will happen in the future, perfectly. You go to the Bible, and you have you know um, Revelation first that came to mind. You have things that are foretold that will happen, but it's still told in a way where you still have to believe, because, and the crazy thing about the Jesus story, Old Testament, the Messiah was prophesied to come. The New Testament says he did come. But in the Old Testament, the Messiah is supposed to come to save the world.